Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another version of Matt Chat. We're brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. My guest today from Cal Poly University, the head assistant coach, and my buddy Chris Chionuma. Chewy, thanks for jumping on with me, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we kept bumping into each other at tournaments. And then y'all just went big. So I think that's the headline, right? So let's start there. Evan Wick announced that he's going to be attending Cal Poly for his last year. His little brother, Luca, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is also going to be going there. That family with the Azevedos and everything else, there's a long tradition of wrestling there. Just tell me how the whole thing happened, because I think a lot of people are curious.
Yeah. So Luca was top 50 recruit out of California. In regards to recruiting, we focus very heavily on California wrestlers. We get our best bang for the buck staying in state. Luca was at a weight class we needed. We got some hammers around there. We got Legend Lamer, seeded 9 going into the national tournament. So we're looking for someone to go 57 after Legend's brother graduates. And Luca was a perfect fit, obviously. So we've been going after him hard as soon as he went into his junior year, made a lot of contacts and gauged interest and kind of stuck with it until eventually he committed. And from then, you know, more doors started to open. We started to get more attention and more recruits wanted to come through. And after, you know, Evan popped into the portal, we talked as a coaching staff, so let's go after him. Like, absolutely, it makes too much sense to not go after him. So we had Luca at the time, and as soon as we started recruiting him, we talked to, actually Xander was interested in our RTC as well. He was coming home anyways and wanted to be involved in California wrestling, and we needed someone for the position to help increase interest in the kids club and get more kids involved in the surrounding area. Interviewed him and showed him around campus. He was a perfect fit. The Wick name is well known around California and carries a lot of weight. So got him hired on. So we had Luca and Xander. And obviously John Azevedo has been around for the RTC for a period of time. And so we had those 3 things. And then obviously his family down south, so it's not too far away. We had all the intangibles. We had all of the things, you know, that it would take that no other school could get. So it made too much sense not to go after him, and eventually it made too much sense for him not to go anywhere else. So you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and this time we landed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Never up, never in, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, a couple of things come to mind. The first part of it is I talked to a guy that I really respect in recruiting, and a couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, and he's a mutual friend of ours. I'm going to keep his name, but he was like, you know, I think Cal Poly doesn't have the right recruiting strategy. He's like, you know, they're trying to compete with, you know, the Oklahoma States and the Penn States, and it's a tough decision. Like, until you win, nobody looks at you the same way. He goes, if they would concentrate on California, because California is so good, and like you said, in-state, and I don't know how much people really understand that, but the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition and expenses are gigantic.
Oh my gosh.
And how much you can spread money out and how much further money goes. I mean, I know that, you know me, I recruited a little bit back in the day. And, let's start with that. Like, when did you guys maybe come to the realization or re-strategize? Because you could see the difference, right? Like, whenever that happened, like, you guys were getting maybe 1 or 2 sort of top 200 kind of kids in a year. And those kids are tough to coach up against a top 10 or 20 kid. And now you guys are getting a lot more of those 50 to 100 kids. And and then those kids have a chance to win. You're actually not walking into a gunfight with a knife. So tell me, like, what happened there?
So John hired me on as the recruiting coordinator, recruiting director. And John actually does a really good job with getting top 100 kids. He is a great salesman. He's super direct. He's very transparent. And he just needed help with getting people to come in and sit in front of them. So he told me recruit them all. And my first year we pulled in 11. My second year we pulled in 16. And 95% were all from California. And, you know, this place is too easy to sell. Like you're 15 minutes away from 3, 4, 5 different beaches. You got beautiful weather year round, 300 days of the year. You have a great education. You have Division I wrestling. So for us, we sold the dream of becoming a very competitive top 25 Division I program that kids could buy into. And obviously California kids like staying in California. That's like historical data. Everyone knows that. So
yeah, it's true.
Once they like, and there was a lot of misses the first couple of years with like big names, but we just had to stay consistent, continue recruiting the guys that we want, which is, you know, people that are placing since sophomore year, and by their junior year, they're top 3. We stayed in that range and then continue to recruit a little bit outside of it. But by recruiting and getting to know that many recruits, we start to build our brand just from recruiting, making those connections. Even if we don't land the commit, or if just getting inside of the high school room is great, like we got to show our logo, we got to show who we are as coaches, and people start to fall in love with who we are as coaches and what we're doing at the program. So we basically rebranded. People thought that Cal Poly was this, you know, school that was on edge. Like they don't know if it was going to stick around for a while. And once they realize that we're here to stay, and our athletic department and our athletic director wants this program to succeed very well, you know, did people start buying in? There was a lot of turnover before, but now that they see this continuity, it really helps. So when John first got here, he had a roster of, I think we got down to like 17, and then we recruited that 11 and that class of 16. And, you know, now we're going to have a roster somewhere close to 30, 36. And when you have that, it makes it easier to go out and pick, you know, that top 100 kid, that top 50 kid. That way you can put them and place them in the lineup instead of worrying about what holes you're going to have next.
You have depth now.
We've worked so hard to get depth. Like
sure.
Big, it was like such an obvious need, and a part that I really took onto myself to make sure that we never have this problem again. I don't want to worry about one person getting hurt or just throwing a body out there. I want to have, 3 or 4 people ready to go, not who needs development, but ready to go. So yeah, the depth is a huge part of our success as well.
Yeah. You know, you're a Kansas City guy, and we're going to get into that. And I'm a St. Louis guy. So we both are from Missouri. I think we saw how Mizzou built up. Like when I was wrestling, it was not, teams were sending their junior varsity into wrestle and dual meets in the Big 12 and to where they are now. And, you know, it's one of those deals where, you know, they started by qualifying guys, then they qualified their whole team. And then a couple of their guys won matches. Then you get a breakthrough guy, you know, like with you guys, like with Truax and that kind. And now, like, I always tell people, you have to get one kid that you need to wear a suit for on Saturday night, because then everybody else remembers, you know, like you can even get pinned in the finals if you're not supposed to be there. People are like, oh, I mean, realistically, right? Like if one of your guys could have made the finals and he got decked in 20 seconds, you'd be sad. But big picture, like we were on ESPN, we were under the lights, like that branding for your program is huge. So the other thing that you mentioned, first of all, I want to make sure people know John Cerritos is the head coach, because there's a John Azevedo. Just make sure we know who you're talking about. And then the other part is you mentioned state results. And I think most people know this, but California has, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like 800 plus schools that wrestle.
Yes.
And they have one class. Okay. Mm-hmm. So to be fair, like you and I are from Missouri, which currently has about 250 schools that wrestle, and they have 4 classes.
Yeah.
So to put it, in Missouri, you have to be the best out of like 60, 65. Mm-hmm. In California, you have to be the best out of 800. So you can take a kid that took 3rd or 4th there, especially if he's done it more than once. We had a kid in junior college we recruited who was really smart. His counselor didn't put him in enough core credits, and he took 4th the year Morgan McIntosh won the weight. And ended up being a 2-time JUCO finalist, and then transferred to Oregon State and was a starter for them in a national qualifier. And he never won state. But honestly, some of these guys that never won state, they're a lot hungrier. They're super coachable. I've coached plenty of kids that were one-timers in Missouri that thought they were Logan Stieber or Kyle Dink. Like,
Yeah.
settle down, young buck. There's levels to the game. So talk a little bit about that, about recruiting that one class tournament. And, maybe I think you have to shift expectations, right? You're not going to get a lot of 3-timers out of California.
Right. So like, and I recruited over at Army West Point and a little bit when I was in Division II, but you can miss if you're not familiar with the state. It's easy to miss, just like you said with Missouri. Like sometimes you miss. Sometimes a weight class or in that certain class might be weak, and sometimes it might be decked out, and you can get the guy that does place 4th, and he's really, really tough. But in California, you're rarely going to miss. You're rarely going to miss. Those guys are usually tough. There's too many people in the state for them to get on that podium and not have someone competitive to wrestle. Now, you obviously make your cuts as far as recruitment by the academics and the character, but the athletic ability, if they're standing on that podium, for the most part, we want you. We want you.
And that helps, right? That saves time, right? Like, you don't have to go through and look at how deep the weight was. Like, if you call me about a kid in Missouri, you're going to call me. I'm like, yeah, it was not a good weight. Or
yes.
Like, you have to go do that in a lot of states, I think, right? I did when I recruited. I always tell people, if I could get the 14 guys that took 6th in California every year, we'd win JUCO Nationals.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's tough. These kids are outstanding, like incredibly athletic. They're lights out on their feet. Like, the energy that they bring to the wrestling is great. And then what happens when you keep them in state is that you build your fan base. The parents are able to drive. They want to come watch some wrestling in California. People recognize the name and want to come to the duels. So it's like we're building a big community here at Cal Poly. And it's starting to really show up. It's really cool to be a part of this program right now.
Yeah, you can see it. I mean, like, you and I have known each other a long time. We may get into that, but I mean, like, I would see you I coach teams that just, I'll use the right term, pooped the bed at nationals, right? And it's just so discouraging because for 6 months you feel good about it, and then in our case 2 days, in your case 3 days, it just blows up, and it's disheartening. And it's like, you used to always schedule 2 days off of work after nationals because I'm like, good or bad, I'm probably going to be out of it, right? Like no meetings till Wednesday. So to see you after how the tournament went this year, the energy is so different. So let's go back to Wick. So now he's in the portal. You have all the stuff set up. We're obviously hearing certain things. Was it pretty quickly down to you in Penn State? Or, I mean, I know a lot of people were sniffing around. And why did he leave Wisconsin?
It was pretty quickly down to us and Penn State. What he told us about leaving Wisconsin was that he just, the training wasn't for him. The training style wasn't for him. And he can get into that, but he wanted to be happy. Just like he said in his interview with Flo, like, he really wanted to be happy. He made his decision based on happiness. And, that's something that we as a coaching staff, like, prioritize with our guys, on top of, like, anyone can show single legs. Like, that's not a secret. Everyone knows single legs, but what we do a really good job of is, team culture and making sure everyone gets along with each other and enjoys the sport of wrestling and prioritizes growth. So he came here on his visit and he saw that and fell in love with it. So at one point it was just down to us. And then he got a call from Penn State, and then Penn State entered the chat. So we're like, gosh, dang it. That's tough, but at the same time. Well,
listen, to be fair, that's like you're sneaking the prettiest girl in the bar out and you think no one's going to notice, right?
It's true.
I mean, right? Like, somebody's going to go, hey, hey, I got an open tab. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's never that simple. That's like when we recruited Duran and Jamel, like, you ain't sneak. You got to put in work. You got to put in your time. It's humbling, right?
It's true. And
it's humbling.
and we were like, all right, like you look at Cal Poly and the facilities that we have, and then you step into Penn State, like that's the pinnacle of the sport, like they have it all. But what we had was completely different. Like they had the facilities and the coaches and the wrestlers. That's great. But what we have are all the intangibles. We have his family. We have his coach. We have Bernie Truax, who they've been training together. We have this great environment. We have like his home, those are all the intangibles. And we were like, F this, we're going to go. Like, we're going to go for it. Like, there's no point in backing down. We have goals to be, we reached our goal of being a top 25. We have goals to be a top 15, team. So we're chasing after it.
Well, you said it earlier, but you got to shoot your shot, right? Like you got to shoot your shot. Like you got a California kid with family members there. And if you didn't go hard in the paint, I think that's worse than losing it, right? Yes. Like if you went to Penn State or anywhere else in the country, I'm just mentioning Penn State because that's what he mentioned. No disrespect to the other 70 something teams. But if somebody could say to you in Cerritos, like, you guys didn't go after him, like what? Like that's an inferiority complex. That's a problem. Like you all need to go to group therapy if you don't do that, right? I mean, seriously, right? Like, hey, you need to literally revisualize yourself. So I think I told you off the air when I texted you or whatever, I'm like, being in the same conversations as Penn State is that alone, right? Like all the, the chatter, all the stuff, like all the forums and everything else, like Cal Poly this, Cal Poly that, like that helps. Like I coached at a junior college. Nobody in the world wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to go to junior college when like that's nobody's dream, right?
Yeah.
Like that's nobody's dream. And a lot more kids right now are thinking about when I grow up, I want to go to Penn State than I grow up, I want to go to Cal Poly. And so to be in that plane, to be in that conversation is super affirming. It's elevating. It's, you guys in this one category, you leveled up, and won the battle. Like I say, even if you'd lost the battle, I think there would have been a lot of value to it. You'd have lost time, but to win the battle is even more significant.
Yeah.
So we've always thought Wick, we watch him, we do all the rankings. We're like, man, that dude could easily be a 74 pounder. How does this fit into your lineup now? Let's talk about that with him and Truax, and everybody's got this extra redshirt year and it's kind of hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah.
So help sort that out for us.
So we haven't set on a weight class just yet for Wick. It's either 165 or 174. But Bernie Truax is definitely bumping up to 184, and that is going to be huge. Like, I've coached for a while. I've coached over at Army and Washita, and I've wrestled some really good guys. When I say Bernie Truax is the real deal, I'm like, holy smokes! Like this guy is legit. And
what's his high school background? Where is he from, and what did he accomplish?
I believe he's a two-time placer, third and second. He got second his junior year
in Cali,
in California. Yeah. And I'll have to go and double check, but never won it. Perfect
example, right? Of what you're talking
about. Exactly. But like when you talk about a kid that has fire and desire, like he's had it in him. And that was a guy that we had to sit down and figure out. And then once we kind of helped him figure himself out, he just took off, man. But he needed the environment to figure himself out. Like an environment where we've grown as a program. At first, like when like that first year that I was here, we trained really, really hard. It was like 2.5 hour practices and a ton of instruction. It was just hard on the guys, and we come in and run and lift hard. It was more about like that. It was more of the Iowa style training, back in the day,
grind it out, see who's left over.
Yeah. And then we just like, we didn't have the bodies to do it. We just didn't have the bodies to do it. So we sat down after the year, we made some decisions together as a coaching staff. So we said, we got to recruit and we got to keep our guys healthy. How do we do that? And from then on, we changed up our style of practices. We figured out what's more important, how we can be more efficient with our time. Like our practices went from, 2 hours, 2.5 hours down to 75 minutes. If we can't get it done in that amount of time, then you're not doing it right. And then like, obviously we're getting our individuals in twice a week with each guy, and our guys started becoming more hungry in the room. They started to get more out of their individuals instead of being zombies walking through each workout.
Yeah.
These guys were fresh every single day, and that change alone created the environment for Bernie to really thrive. Like, he could actually think now instead of like try to keep himself together through practice. But yeah,
you mentioned something about, well, you specifically about, the length of practices and things like that. And I think we subconsciously pace ourselves, right? Like, this podcast is going to be 45 minutes and I know you and me, and it's going to go fast, right? Like, I'm like, I got to get through everything, right?
Yeah.
If we go 2.5 hours, I'm like, man, take your time, elaborate on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so it's the same thing with the practice, right? Like, if you and me are the same age and we're doing goes, we're going to do 45 minutes, like, man, bro, like, how about you get 2 and I get 2? Like, if it's 5 minutes, it's going to be a fist fight with rules, and so I think that's super interesting. One of the Gracies from jiu-jitsu said this one time, and it's always stuck with me. They said, if we threw you out in the middle of the ocean and we said, we'll be back in 15 minutes, you'd find a way to survive.
Mm-hmm.
They said, if we throw you out in the middle of the ocean and don't tell you when we're coming back, you'll be dead in 5 minutes.
That is legit. I've never heard that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And feel free to steal it, because clearly I did. But I think it's your mind sets these sort of, okay, I can do this for this long. And when it's unknown, and certainly some people are really mentally strong and would just hang out for a couple hours and figure it out. But most people, especially when it seems like it's undoable, just cash out.
Yeah. And it's no secret to us. We put like 60 minutes up on the clock, right? The first 10 is our warm up, 60 minutes on the clock. Soon after it's over, they know practice is winding down, and we are absolutely happy for them to know that. Like, they know what's expected. We're going to get this amount done. And if we say like we're going to do conditioning after 6 minutes over, they give us the conditioning knowing that we're about to be done. But like, there's no point in hiding it anymore. I think I guess in my experience, I know working smarter is better for the athletes that we have at Cal Poly, instead of, playing mind games and trying to, create toughness out of, being vague. That's not what we do. That's not how we've had our success.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a story that I don't think you know. Okay. And you correct me if I'm wrong, because, I'm old and stuff slips away, but I think it was your junior year in high school. You were wrestling, and I'll say it, you got absolutely hosed in one of the matches on the front side. Was it your junior year? Because you won it your senior year, right?
Senior year. Okay.
So your mom, like, there is no way if you look at your mother, you don't know that you're her child. Okay. Like, okay. I mean, this, so I'm sitting in the stands and I'm recruiting, and, I'm recruiting both of you guys, at least watching, like getting ready. And, like, okay, when these guys are seniors, I need to be talking to them. And I knew both coaches. And I don't know how your mom knew me, but she said, Coach. And she kept talking. She finally said, Coach Mercatani. And I turn around and she goes, why are they cheating my son like this?
Oh.
And, first of all, I'm not even supposed to admit you're getting cheated, right? Mm-hmm. But, and I've maybe talked to your mom 3 times, like when we recruited you and then you realized you had good grades, you weren't going to go to junior college. And it obviously ended amicably because we're here now, but I don't know if you knew that story. And I was like, ma'am, I don't know. It's terrible. And I literally moved seats because I was like, this is like literally watching the Titanic go down and watching somebody's parent watch the ship,
It's heavy.
It was heavy. But I mean, so please tell your mom I said hi. And, now that everything's good, I was like, God, that's terrible. But for people that don't know, you're a Kansas City guy. Walk me through your high school, and then you did a couple unique things in college, and then how you ended up at Poly.
So, as a high school wrestler, I started my freshman year. I was 11-19. I was garbage. My best move was a bridge. Mike Haggerty will say it over and over again how impressive my bridge is. So shout out to Hag. My sophomore year, I was a qualifier. Junior year, the year that you're talking about, I placed 3rd. And in that match was actually a big reason of why I competed the way I did throughout the rest of my senior year and throughout college.
I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, the biggest lesson. Like, I just made sure I was so pissed. I made sure that the ref would never make a decision ever again. I was going to make it so obvious.
Well, and to be fair, they took the referee out of that tournament after that match. He wasn't on. I'm not going to name him because he just had a really bad day, or else he had a problem with you. It was one or the other. But literally, just so people understand, you were shooting and the guy was running off the mat and they warned you for pushing him out. Like you probably remember it obviously better than I do. We all remember, but that happened like 3 times.
Yeah, like I almost got stalled out of the mat for
going forward.
Offensive, yeah,
for going forward,
yeah. So that was like at that point, like you said, I remember I did the wrestler sprint after you lose a match. I go into the tunnel and I'm like what should I have done differently? Like, what do? I did everything that my coaches told me to do. Like, I attacked, I tried, and I still lost. Like, I had more takedowns than he did in the match. He had all of his points were penalty points from the ref, and from then on, I was on a violent tear to make sure that no one or no referee was involved into the decision of the match, not even my opponent. So that's a big reason of the way I compete, and big reason the way I coach my wrestlers as well. But senior year ended up winning it with a really bum knee. I had torn my LCL, MCL, and I had MRSA. Like, I jacked my knee up at super districts, and it also got infected. So had surgery that Sunday, and airdyed my way down to weight and ended up winning it on Saturday that same week. And then, so got the call up from, actually, I committed to Lindenwood. My brother was there, and he's like my idol. So went over to Lindenwood, and I ended up not starting at first, but come national duels, I really wanted to go. And I walked into the office. I said, Chad Parisi,
Chad Smith, Joe Parisi.
Chad Smith, Joe
Both
Parisi.
Wrestle for us, by the way. Both wrestle for my dad.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I want to go to national duels, and I'll go up a weight class if I need to. I know that's a weight class you guys need. It's like, okay. I go out and I wrestle, and I beat the number 2 guy by 5-3, and I wrestled some other ranked guy, and I ended up beating him I majored him. So then I starting from January on out, and I placed 5th that year. The next year I placed 2nd, and my 3rd year at NAI I placed I won it. And I think over those 3 years I had 150 or more something matches.
Lindenwood wrestled a ton of matches, and they basically just wrestled tournaments, didn't wrestle duels. And NAI was and still is where you take your best 12. You could literally take 2 at 6 weights and have 4 open weights. And because Lindenwood is now a Division II team, just so people understand there's a difference. And back then NAI's the scholarship it's still kind of the Wild West. Like, if you want a guy, you can figure out a way to give him everything. So it's a completely different business model than what D2 is. Mm-hmm. But then they transferred to D2, and we're going to get whacked out, right?
Yeah. So I would have lost my 2 years. They would have gone in 2 years of probation. I would have been done. I wouldn't be.
And they would have gone probation for nothing they did wrong. That's just what they require schools to do. I just want to make sure so nobody from Lindenwood, because I'm going to be the RCT coach there in August. Like, nobody's calling me going, yo.
Yeah, they wouldn't be surprised, huh?
You put us on blast and we didn't do anything wrong. No, when you transfer from one level to the other, same thing from D2 to D1, there's a sit-out process where you're not allowed to compete. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So then doors opened, and I had some really nice advocates in my corner, and a person who did it along the way. You reached out to Oklahoma State, and you have a really tight connection with John Smith and Eric at the time, and ended up getting a phone call from Eric Guerrero and being flown out there. And they obviously remember, oh my gosh, what's my guy's name? Dang, I'll his name will come up here in a little bit. But another Lindenwood ref, Jake Diefenbach.
When you're older, you remember all these guys.
And like, he's another reason why I obviously had the success without having Jake Diefenbach in the room. I don't know if I would have had anyone else to push me as far as he did. So
He's a Lindenwood to Oklahoma State guy as well.
Exactly. A guy who did the exact same transfer before.
And was really good and got hurt at nationals and actually had beaten Mark Perry that year. Just put some respect on Jake's name. So
he was nice. Definitely. I can't remember how high he was ranked, but I know he was definitely top 10. And, so went out to Oklahoma State, and I remember sitting down in front of John Smith, and he was like, "Do you know who this guy is?" He's pointing at Pat Smith. I was like, "I don't know. 4-timer is what it says up there." He's like, "Yeah, first 4-timer ever. You don't know who he is?" Like, He's like, "That's my brother." I was like, "Oh, that's good for you." I had no idea what wrestling, like this level of wrestling. I just did it for fun. But when I got to Oklahoma State and he was like telling me all of the tradition in the sport, and like, it was really cool. And it was I didn't realize it was an honor to be there, but sitting down there and walking around campus and him telling me stories and seeing all of his shoes up on his cabinets in his office, like it was really, really an honor. It was a nice little educational experience from about wrestling. So from then on, I redshirted my next year. So I wrestled 174 at Lindenwood, weighing 90, transferred in. They cut me down to 165, and I went undefeated that year as a redshirt. And then the following year, they bumped me up to 184. Caldwell came in at 165. Perry bumped down from 84 to 74 the year before, and now they needed an 84-pounder. So I was between Perry and Roshaw. Roshaw was up in 97.
Those were fun practice days.
You're talking about not having an easy day and nowhere to hide. Holy crap!
I got the lean in. I was like,
"Oh my god!" Like my easy day was Crutchmer. Like me and Crutchmer would battle. Jordan Rogers was the #1 recruit coming out. Nolan Boyd was an All-American, in the coming. So like those are the guys. They were freshmen at the time. And then obviously I had Alex Daringer when I was down at 65. So the room was stacked.
Yeah, insane.
And go through the year, seeded 9 going to the national tournament. Went 1 and 2. Didn't have the year that I wanted. I was, and obviously I can sit here and make excuses, but I was light. I was really light for the weight class. I was like weighing 182 going in and wrestling these guys that were weighing like 200 at the time. But it was a learning experience. I feel like I competed so well at 184 up a couple weight classes because of the technique that I learned over at Oklahoma State. Like without being slick and understanding positions very well, would I be able to compete with some of those bigger guys? So
Well, to sort of explain this, you wrestled. I knew what was going on at Lindenwood, and I knew what was really going on. And then I knew like they're trying to keep everybody, and some guys just should stay. They're not that good. And there's a few guys that are special. And you wrestled a kid of mine that ended up 3rd at junior college nationals named Anthony Sully from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Who's really good. And he's another kid, like didn't win state, but Jersey's like Cali, like 400-600 schools, like you take top 3 in New Jersey, like you said, you don't have to figure out if they're good or not.
Yeah.
And you decimated it. And I knew who you were. I mean, I'd known all along. I go all the way back to your junior in high school, but I'm like, you jumped left, like you were better. I mean, like your junior year guy, like you couldn't have gotten cheated in high school the way you were wrestling in college. Like you said, that was the goal, right? So you actually did jump levels. And I remember just when all this happened, I'm like, this dude cannot stay here. Like this needs to happen. And so it's funny, you and I talk a lot, and like sometimes there's these little calls in life that are tipping points, right? Like things happen and people's lives go in a whole different direction. And you've done such a good job of making the most of those opportunities and coaching. And you're always a super positive guy whenever I see you, like, even if it's like, we're going to get him next year. And then this year I said, we got him this year. We're going to have to get him next year. So it's a joy to watch you grow, like, you're grown now and, but I do remember kind of thinking when I worked out, I'm like, I'll bet his mom would trade the junior year in high school for where he is now. Like, cause there's nothing, I think you wrestled Iowa. Oklahoma State wrestled Iowa in a dual meet, and it was the last strike force ever. Okay, because Randy Couture's son was fighting, and me and Randy are buddies. And I brought Randy over with his son and a bunch of people to the dual meet. And then we all had front row seats. We worked with Taylor Miller, who's now Taylor Gregorio and a USA. I mean, it's like, it's all coming back. But like, John and Randy are obviously buddies. And, but and now it was like, you had one of the swing matches. And like, how it goes. Like, hey, these 4 guys are going to win. These 4 guys are going to lose.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't say that, but if you're not a coach, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I remember telling Randy, I'm like, this guy's a Missouri guy. I'm like, he's here because I called them. And I'm like, when he won the match, like Randy was like punching me. Like I was like, hey, stop. Yeah, that was cool. Who did you wrestle from Iowa that year? Do you remember?
Ethan Loft House.
Yeah, the kid from Utah, right?
Yeah. Tough.
Yeah. That has to be a great memory, right? Like, being involved in a duel like that, like it was like a 16-15 duel or 18-12 or something like that.
That's when I realized like the history of Oklahoma State, like that's when it all like kind of came to fruit. I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like one, seeing all these people travel in and packing Gallagher, Iba, two, listening to how loud the crowd got, and 3, like, getting that takedown and watching the crowd erupt. Like I've never heard a gym, so loud, and being at the center of that is definitely one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like that was a big honor. I'm so fortunate to be a part of that and like have that kind of match. Like it'd be different if I just went in and like torched them, but like to be able to go, like to be able to come up big for the team. That was cool. That was really cool.
Like I'm good friends with Piccinini, and like, like when he pinned Spencer Lee and Gallagher, like, and he did torch him sort of, like it was close and then it wasn't, but like that place going bonkers, like, and whenever they talk about Nick fighting, like that's always the match they show. So
yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left. Tell me about Central Coast RTC. So I just see pictures. I see, descriptions. It looks amazing. Tell me about it. Tell me how it's going to benefit Cal Poly and all the good kids in California.
Yeah. So Central Coast RCT is partnered with Titan Mercury. The plan is to obviously put this building in the community, separate from campus, to where it's basically more for the community than it is, like wrestling. That's why there's different colors and things like that. So it's in the community, and we have guys like John Azevedo and Kemp involved, and those big names.
Lee Kemp.
Yeah, Lee Kemp.
Okay. All right.
Those names will, bring in, those accolades will bring in a lot of the kids from the community to want to come in and join wrestling for hopefully the first time. And those kids have been wrestling for a while will want to come in. So, and with partner with Titan Mercury, they'll fly in some wrestlers from time to time to come and train in the RTC with our RTC athletes as well. We're currently looking for, well, we have a building, and we have some better options available right now, but waiting to make those decisions. By August 1, we should have a place locked down and have our physical facility, and we have Matt as well from California Wrestling. Like we are down and ready to go, but we want this to be more for California and the area than it is for us. We want it to be a place where kids can come in and wrestle and train and grow in the sport, and eventually step through the doors in Cal Poly or step through wherever. But California needs these kind of RTCs, and obviously every other state, but California definitely needs these hubs where they can come in and train and actually be a part of the sport, especially in the Central Coast, because it's just a high need for higher level wrestling. You have obviously like the Buchanan, the Clovis area, they got it. Like they're doing very well. Yeah. But even they, like if they want to come down and train next to some college guys during an RTC practice, like that's an available option for them.
it helps a lot with the legalities of recruiting too, because you can't invite all those kids on campus without going through a bunch of red tape. And if it's just at the separate facility, it makes it a lot easier.
Right.
You are very good at teeing me up for a segue here, because Titan Mercury is ran by Andy Barth. Andy Barth was just in Tulsa this last weekend for the Black Wrestling Association annual meeting and gala, which I'm a part of, and I've sort of said hi and bye to Andy, but to talk to him in person, he's one of the most humble people out there. He and like the Art Martoris of the world are literally giants in the sport of wrestling. And I'm going to strongly encourage you to come down to Junior Duels next year. I know you got people in Oklahoma anyway, but you can recruit, and we're going to run the gala again next year. And so I would like you to come down for that if you can make it. I think you'd enjoy it. Everybody went down to Black Wall Street for the 100th anniversary of the tragedy that happened there. But I think it was like, I talked to Ryan Mango, talked to Jahi Jones, talked to Nate Jackson. They said it was really moving. And I think it's a dark spot in our history as a country, but I think that's how people learn and move upward. We got 2 minutes left. So I'm going to say it's been a lot of fun. I'm going to give the last word to you. What should people know about Cal Poly? And, what do we have coming? And besides, you got, I know, at least 3 hammers in the room next year. So sign us off and tell me what we should know about.
So when John first got to Cal Poly, he came up with a 5-year plan. In 5 years, he wanted to be a top 25 team and have our first All-American. He wanted to be able to raise X amount of dollars and have X amount of scholarships. And we've reached all those goals. It's really cool to be a part of John Cerritos and his coaching staff, and watch him take a program from, unstable to really stable and growing fast. We just sat down in a meeting with our administration and be like, all right, well, you guys are doing a lot of things and we need to figure out the best way to do them, because there's so much attention from the community and the alumni, and they're really happy for what's going on. They want to be a bigger part of it. So we're growing fast, and we're very clear in our next goals. And the trend's going to be the same. We're focused on becoming a top 15 team, and our development, our growth in a coaching staff, our growth as a program, our athletes' growth as wrestlers. We're very confident that we're going to reach those goals very soon. And we're excited to continue to recruit bigger and better recruits as well. We just now opened our doors to the top 50 across the United States instead of just in California. We're being direct. So we're looking for those top 50 kids who wants to come out to California and be a part of a growing, and it's going to be a brand new powerhouse. It's going to stay top 25 for a very long time.
Well, I'm both proud of you and happy for you. It's interesting when you've known guys for a long time, you kind of have to play the 50-yard line on when you can get a guy on your show or not. But when that happened, it was a pleasure to be able to reach out to you. So congratulations on the Nationals. Congratulations on Wick. Please give Cerritos my best. We want to thank everybody for watching and listening, and we'll speak to y'all next week.